A lightweight showcase coming up this weekend. It's Money Mike Breeden. His last time out, like Moneymaker Mike, he went out there and got outstruck 30-1 and knocked out in the first round by Terrence McKinney. That was a short notice call. This time, the man representing Marathon MMA coming in on a 3-fight losing streak, much more nail than hammer, to take on the King of Lions. Road to UFC winner at lightweight Anshul Jubli. Not only did Jubli get a UFC contract when he fought in the road to UFC finals, he also got a performance bonus with his win over noted striker Jekka Saragi. And Matt, for Anshul Jubli, a great big opportunity. You consider fighters out of India in the UFC. I know folks from that country aren't big fans of folks from our country right now. However, you have Anshul Jubli and Bharat Kandari. Those are the few. And of course, one that really kind of mixes it up together, a fighter that ended up as a one championship champion. Who is that fighter, Matt? Arjan Buller. Yes. Arjan Buller couldn't really do it at the highest level in the UFC, but that's neither here nor there. The last time I did a video for a Mike Breeden fight, I was loading a kayak onto the back of the Subi, as we say in the biz, Scranolas, and Mike Breeden went out there and got the tar beaten out of him. So now he gets a big time opportunity to remix to Ignition, as I said. But for Mike Breeden, that fight was back in the middle of August. So kind of a quick draw to get back into it. The knees, the bodywork of Terrence McKinney were really the difference makers. We had a lot to say about the King of Lions before his road to UFC fight. Let's throw it on over to the Anshul Jubli breakdown. Anshul Jubli is the runaway favorite of the season in terms of the fans. Everybody seems to absolutely love him. They think he's going to win this fight. They're going to criticize us if we don't pick him in this one. But I know there's a lot of fan support from the guy who was able to make his mark over with Matrix Fight Series. And for Anshul Jubli, you look at his fighting style, very, very well-rounded. You might look at him and you think, geez, this guy's 6 feet tall, he's a lightweight, he's at a reach discrepancy against most guys because you only got a 69-inch reach, but he makes the most of it with car crash striking, pretty decent offensive wrestling, and he can turn a lot of his opponent's takedown attempts into his own takedowns with his upper body strength, and then he can really, really wear on them when it's on the ground. And for Anshul Jubli, if you look at the way that he does grapple once it hits the mat, he's not like a Gary Tonin. He's not like a Ryan Hall. He's not going to go out there and try and snatch up your legs. He's going to go out there, try and go for arm triangles. He's going to try and maneuver his way to get your arms to get in like a Kimura lock or maybe it's an Americana. But for Jubli, what I found when I went back and I watched a lot of the tape, I listened to his interviews, he's 6-0 as a pro. He also claims to be 13-0 as an amateur. So a win here would be his 20th straight MMA win. And I listened to an interview he did a while ago with JHK where he said his base in MMA, it's street fighting. It's like he's Kimbo Slice. So Anshul Jubli representing Soma Fight Club in Indonesia. So Indonesia will actually have an opportunity to say, hey, we've got a UFC fighter. No matter who wins this.
What I really like about him is he's got a good jab from the outside. I know he doesn't have the longest arms in the world, you're right. He is kind of a unique build that way. But on the outside, he can throw a lot of volume at a guy. And I do appreciate that from a younger fighter because a lot of fighters have a lot of talent, but they don't have the volume to go along with that talent. And that's why they can lose fights early on in their career. They're just not active enough. They can get behind in the scorecard, especially with takedowns and whatnot. With Jubli, I do like the fact that he can go out there and use the jab when he has to. Now, he does enjoy those car crash strikes. It's one of those things where he's technical until he gets hit a couple of times, then he'll start to go into a brawl. But I do like the technical version of him. Although we don't always see it, I do think there's a fighter in there that can string some success together with that type of a style. It'll just be very interesting to see if he uses that kind of a style in this match.
Again, the fans love Jubli, but we'll kind of criticize it a little bit and then we'll bring it back. So
I thought he looked good in the last fight, even though it was a split.
Yeah, he fought Kyung-Pyo Kim over in the semifinals of Road to UFC. He didn't fight in the quarterfinals because his opponent, Patrick Usami, wasn't able to make the weight. So he fights Kyung-Po Kim, and in that first round, he drops him with the left hook. He had really good leg kicks. He could utilize some of that. Again, offensive and defensive wrestling. I think his wrestling, it'll get him caught against really good lightweights, but against very poor lightweights, it'll definitely be a way to win. But the level of competition that Jubli fought on the regional scene with Matrix Fight Night, because that's where all of his pro fights were, was bad. It was really, really bad. Like he fought Mohamed Mahmoudyan, and in that fight, Mahmoudyan looked like he jumped up a weight class. He didn't look like he was in shape. He looked really tired. He went for his own takedown, and then Jubli just trips him, lands on top, and beat him quite easily. His fight against Serkant Sekar, who was 5-4, It's a decision win on his record. He beat him pillar to post in every single aspect of the fight. He knocks out Rajith Chadran. Like,
can we say this, though? When you're 2-0, you should probably fight other guys who are in that 2-0. I know he hasn't fought the highest level of prospects, but that's the thing. If you just look at a split decision win his last time out, you're probably not that impressed. But I thought Kim was a really talented fighter. Like, that was a good fight between those two guys. And I thought Jubli was able to win the first round. I thought he was able to win the second. The third, it got a little hairy for him. But I thought that was a good fight between those two guys. That was an interesting one leading up to this matchup.
That's kind of the crazy thing. So for Jubli in the one fight that was on road to UFC, definitely won the first round, had the knockdown. Round 2 and round 3. 2 of the judges scored round 2 for Kim, and 2 of the judges scored round 3 for Kim. But that doesn't always work out because it ended up a split decision and you had some dissenting rounds. And it really was all striking for Saragi versus the pure grappling of Jubli. Jubli spent a large portion of that fight on top and he was able to rain down really good ground and pound. So this fight, Matt, when it does come down to it, it's a clash of styles. If Morgan Wallen had his way, tonight I'm going F1 50-50, and it feels a little bit like that fight where Mike Breeden, you know him as a boxer, Anshul Jubli, small reach, small arms for a taller guy, but overall a clash of styles. And you, yes you, have been pretty complimentary to Mike Breeden in some of these videos.
Anymore, I'm not.
Just considering the resolve he was able to show at the end of the Natan Levy fight and some of the fights that he had coming into the UFC.
But I think the Levy fight is a great one to bring up, especially in a matchup like this. Because yes, he was able to start making it more competitive down the stretch of that matchup. He got taken down 9 times in that fight, though. And not that Jubli is the same type of grappler that a Levy is. I think he is a lot more active from the top spot, honestly, than a guy like Natan Levy. But Breeden showed that that is a big difficulty for him, is that really not just takedown defense, because Breeden can defend some basic takedowns. He's a long, kind of rangy guy for the division. He does a good job taking underhooks. But the thing is, if you stick to them, if you get him against the cage, you chain wrestle.
Well, Mike Breeden, even getting ready for the Terrence McKinney fight, this is my talking point in that video, was, okay, Breeden trains with Garrett Armfield and Trey Ogden at Marathon MMA. But Mike Breeden is not Garrett Armfield or Trey Ogden.
No, he's not. And I just don't know if his takedown defense is going to be good enough to keep up with Anshul Jubli. And just the good athleticism that he brings into the cage. He does a good job of closing the distance and getting in on those hips. And that's going to eliminate the opportunity for Breeden to land some of those counters up the middle.
Now, again, going a little bit zig to a zag in this video, Anshul Jubli is about a 4-1 favorite. He shouldn't be a 4-1 favorite over somebody's great uncle that's in a nursing home. Anshul Jubli, I don't think he's a very good fighter. When I went back and watched the regional scene tape, it was against some less than stellar competition. Jekka Saragi, going into that fight, you knew that his takedown defense was poor. Jubli was able to pull away. We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Surprise to us there to you. I'm going to say over under 85% Jubli. It feels like a setup fight.
I hope it's under 85%.
It's, oh my gosh, 1,184 total votes, 96% Jubli, 67% by knockout. For the 4% that are Breeden, 40% by decision, 38% by knockout. Again, Jubli striking defense, little bit suspect. So Mike Breeden's able to go out there, land those good boxing combinations that you saw on the way up. You could see him getting a win. This feels like, obviously, major upset territory by odds and by what the fans think. Obviously, I do like that grappling pedigree out of Anshul Jubli, Soma Fight Club down in Indonesia. A little bit of a closer to home type of fight for him, so to speak, or at least geographically, fighting from, or coming from India, fighting over in UAE versus fighting over in North America. So for me, I do have Anshul Jubli in the matchup, but this doesn't feel like the easiest of fights.
It's the Simon and Garfunkel Mad World type of a fight, right? Because it's weird that he's such a big favorite. I say this every single fight card where you have somebody making their debut or their sophomore effort, and they just so happen to be like a minus 450. I know, like, Mohamed Mokaev is a good example, because he's on this card. He has been a big favorite in the majority of his matchups. But guess what? He's going out there and looking pretty good in the majority of those fights. I know that knee bar almost took him out, but still, for Mokaev, he's gone out there and he's been able to justify the odds, right? I just don't know if Jubli up until this point, even against a guy in a 3-fight losing streak, justifies the fact that he's a minus 400. Still have him in the fight, but I don't think you should put any money on him.
You call it pop and popcorn.
Exactly.
You sit there, you watch this one with your buddies, and then you move forward. Matt, some big time fights on this card. You're not going to want to miss them. The next one up, Matt. Ooh, boy, how about Sedriques Dumas taking on Abu Azaitar? A big fight. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.